Hello Infiniteers! Today we're going to continue working on the logic for my Tron toy box. Last time I showed you how to hook up the logic for the light cycle arena. And when the game is done, it opens the gateway down there at the other end of the arena, which takes the player into the canyons. Today I'm going to show you how to implement the logic for the enemy turrets and the color pressure plate puzzle that the player needs to solve in order to exit those canyons. But before I do that, I want to address a comment that I received on the last episode. Chad Main asked, would path branches give you more of a randomized path? Well, actually it would. And that is a great idea that I had not considered. There are a couple of tricks, though, to making it work well, so I thought I would show you how you might do that. And if you're not familiar with path branches, I covered that in Toy Box Tutorials episode 39. And so you may want to go back and watch that, but I'll show that to you again here. Alright, so in this corner of the arena we have one of our shorter paths. It's a relatively small loop compared to the others, and it goes around in a circle, and it goes in this direction. So if you wanted to add a little bit of randomness to this, you could come over to one of the path points, for example this one, select it, and notice the menu on the bottom of the screen. The left button on my Wii U creates a branch, and if I press my left button, that creates a branch. Okay? Now you need to make sure when you create this that you don't create it branching off like this, because the driving physics will make that very hard for the vehicle to make and change the direction and make that turn. So you want to try to keep it somewhat initially in line with the path that it's coming off of. Okay? And now at this point we can try to steer this path anywhere we want it to go. So trying to make this curve here a little bit smoother, and we can adjust these points as we need to. But let's take it down this direction. And we'll cut our loop a little shorter and make it longer in this direction. And now the key to making this work well on the other end is to bring the path point as close as you can to the starting point, because eventually when the light cycle reaches the end of the branch, you need to be able to reconnect it onto the main path. And so this is as close as we can get, so we'll drop this point right here behind it. Okay? And we exit, and there we go. Okay. So again, you don't want to come back into this path at a sharp angle. Notice how I kind of have it coming in, going the same direction as the original path does. And that is, again, because the driving physics, when you try to make it reconnect to the path, you don't want to have a sharp turn there, because the vehicle will struggle with that. And also you need this point to be as close as possible to this, so that when you reconnect it to the path, it doesn't jump significantly. You don't want the vehicle to look like it's teleporting over a great distance. Which means you can't create too many paths, because there's only so many places you can position another path point around this path. Alright, so what this does is when the game comes around, the vehicle comes around and it reaches this point, the game is going to randomly decide whether the vehicle stays on the main path or takes the branch. And this adds a little unpredictability to the game, which is a good thing. And so if it does take the branch, it's going to go this way instead of this way. And it'll follow the branch all the way till it gets down around to the end of the branch, and then it's not going to know what to do. And so we have to come over to our path point and select it. Go into the logic menu, do a new logic connection when the point is reached by the object on the path, come back over to your path point where they started from, scroll down and say connect triggering actor to path. Okay? So when the light cycle reaches this point, it'll jump back onto the main path. And again, you want this path point to be as close as you can to this so it doesn't look like it's teleporting, because it will jump. It won't actually drive here, but it will be facing the direction that it was facing here, which is why the direction of the path leading into this, you want it as close as you can to the original path as possible. Okay, so that's how you would implement that. And as I said, you can go nuts to your heart's content. But just don't go too crazy creating too many paths, okay? Because the more paths you add, the more complex the logic, the more memory it also takes up. If you look over on the right on my memory meter, you'll see we had just a little over half the memory free when we finished the build exercise. And just adding in the game grid arena and the light cycle arena, that's kicked us up pretty significantly. So don't go too crazy with paths. Okay, let's move on to the canyons now, and hopefully that answers Chad Main's question about how you would use paths and how you can reconnect the light cycle back to the main path once it's done traveling the branch. Okay, for the canyons, what we're going to do is a couple of things. We're going to add some turrets placed around the canyons to give the player a little bit of a challenge. And we've also got a couple of color pressure plate puzzles that we've put in here. So let me show you the creativitoys you're going to need for this. First, we're going to need a replayer to put those turrets down, because we want to be able to take them back out when we're done with the canyons, because they take up a lot of memory. We need a couple of logic gates. For the color pressure plate puzzle, I have added a color pressure plate, and this is out of the gameplay toys. And I also added another arrow from the decorations drawer just to let the player know there's something here between these two decorations they need to interact with, because the pressure plate's a little bit dark, so it might be hard to notice. And then we have an effects generator and a locator. Over here, same thing, effects generator, locator, color pressure plate, and a arrow from the decorations drawer. Up here we have a dual action trigger and a couple of large block walls out of the blocks drawer. And we're going to need one more thing. Let me go into the Creativitoys. We're going to use a path creator to place these walls in this opening so that it blocks off the exit. Okay, so we're going to drop our path. We're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 nudges and exit. And on the path properties, turn off auto start objects when connected. And again, these are from the blocks drawer. They're the large block wall. And once again, we're going to style these using the hologram texture. And I'll apply that to both blocks. Okay, so we'll come over to our first block. Open the logic menu, do a new path connection. Select the path, and we're going to connect it to the path. And then I'm going to set the block wall properties. Movement style should be one way and stop. And I'm going to set, I think it's the horizontal offset. Yeah, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and put that over here on that side of the path. And yours may be -6 depending on which way you oriented these blocks, whether it's that way or that way. All right, second block, we'll connect that to our path. Select that block, go into the properties, toy box path. This time the horizontal offset will be -6. Movement style, one way and stop. All right, so there is the exit for our canyons, and it's blocked off. Okay, on the replayer, we'll set the, whoops, not that, that's the logic gate. On the replayer, set the properties to take the playback interval to 0. And the canyons that we're going, or the cannons that we're going to use are under the gameplay toys. And it's probably going to be a long scroll either way we go. But we'll try going to the right. And it's one of the kiln cannons, which I think matches the theme here pretty well. It's this Sakaran Omni Blaster turret. Okay. And I will not place it, but I'll just go ahead and exit. And we'll come over to our replayer and step on the replayer to get the menu in the lower right. On my Wii U, I press B to start recording, and then in order to get back into the editor, I have to walk off of that. And now we're going to place a few of these around the canyon. And you want to place these in such a way that the player will come around a corner on their light cycle and kind of run right into them and be surprised. You don't want to put them at the end of a long stretch like this, because the player will be able to see them coming. So I could put one down here at the end, or I could put one over here. Let's place one over here. And this is kind of a good corner to put one, because no matter which way they come, whether it's that way or that way, that cannon will surprise them. You don't want to go nuts in here, though, with a lot of these, because we don't really want to use up a ton of memory here. We've got other things that are going to be in this toy box, too, so I think 4 of them is probably sufficient. And we'll exit the editor, step back on the replayer, press B to stop recording, and A to clear. And again, only press A one time. If you press it twice, you'll corrupt the replayers. Not just this one, but the one over also at the Game Grid Arena that's putting down all the blip blocks, which is, by the way, another reason why you don't want to put down a ton of cannons in here, because there's only so much replayer memory. And if you put down too many cannons and too much stuff with this replayer, that can corrupt the other replayer as well. Alright, so now we have our replayer putting down the cannons. And now we want to plug the replayer into our logic for the end of the light cycle arena. So you'll remember the counter keeps track of the light cycles that are defeated, and then it invokes this logic gate, which causes the barrier to go down, and when this is reset and played, it comes back up and closes the logic gate, so that only happens one time. We're going to plug into this same logic gate to generate those cannons. So on the logic gate, we'll do a new logic connection. On output from this gate, we'll come over to our replayer and do a playback. I'll actually cancel. I don't want to do that directly. Sorry about that. Actually, yeah, we'll do that. Go ahead and delete this logic gate, because I made a little change here last time that made that other logic gate unnecessary. So yeah, so on here we'll do a new logic connection on output. We'll come over to the replayer and do a playback. Okay, and that's only going to happen once because that same logic gate, again, is doing the reset and play on this path, which will turn around and disconnect this. So if the player does decide to go back and play the light cycle arena, and they go through the trigger area down there, that resets the counter so they can play the game. And when the counter, and the target is reached the second time, it'll try to input into this. But this is already down, so this gate's already closed, which means it's not going to lower that again, and it's not going to do a second playback on this replayer, which could corrupt the replayer. So the replayer is protected. This is only going to happen once. And when that's played back, it'll put the turrets in. Okay, and we'll get to this other logic gate here at the end of the video. Now once the player is in here, in order to get that barrier down, they need to find these two color pressure plates and set them to the right color in order to open that gate. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to come over to each of these color pressure plates. We'll go into the properties. Number of colors we'll leave at 5. We're going to leave that set to off, all off, and we're going to turn this on so that as they're cycling through these, we'll leave it with the offsetting in the mix. So both pressure plates we're going to set up the same way. We're just going to set that last property to on. Okay. Alright, so you can set this to have whatever color you want. I'm going to have this one do orange. So on this color pressure plate, we're going to do a new logic connection. When this is turned orange, we're going to do 3 things. First thing we want to do is come up to our dual action trigger and input into that. That'll be input 1. Second thing I want to do is play a sound effect to let them know that they got it right. They found the color they're looking for. So on here, a new logic connection. When it's turned orange, we're going to come over to our sound effect generator over here. And yeah, under the general category, we're going to play the same sound that we did when the light cycles are destroyed. And that's the power down sound that's near the end. There it is. And then the third thing we will do is play a visual effect, just in case the player has the sound turned down. So on this color pressure plate, new logic connection. When this is turned orange, we're going to come over to our effects generator, and we're going to play once the spinning star. And we don't want that to happen at the effects generator, so we'll connect that to a locator that we placed down ahead of time. And now we will move the locator on top of the pressure plate. Okay. When you're hooking up the logic for the pressure plate, make sure all of the logic signals are for when it's turning orange, or whatever color you chose. Now this one over here is going to work the same way, but we're going to use a different color. For this one, I'm going to use purple. So on this one, new logic connection, when it is turned purple, come over to our dual action trigger, and that'll be input 2. On our color pressure plate, new logic connection, when it is turned purple, I want to come over and play our sound effect. As you can see, the logic isn't difficult. It just takes a little time to hook up. The canyon logic is actually very simple. Most of the logic in this is from here on out. The game grid arena over there was the most complicated, and we've already done that. Everything else just takes time. Alright, so then on our second color pressure plate, another logic connection when it turns purple. Again, we will invoke our effects generator. We'll play once the spinning star. And we want that to happen at our locator, so we'll do a new locator connection. Connect it to that locator, and then move the locator on top of the pressure plate. Alright, so there we go. Both color pressure plates are hooked up. So the player just has to find their way to them and set them to the right color. And it's just random. They jump on it until they hit the right color. Now, when both have been set properly, that activates the dual action trigger. And so on here, we're going to do a new logic connection. When this is complete, we'll come over to our path, and we will do a reset and play. And that will lower that barrier down into the ground and open the way for the player to be able to exit. And we want to let the player know that's what they need to do. So on the dual action trigger, a new logic connection. When this is complete, we'll come over to our text displayer that we put down last time. And under the survival modes category, which is almost all the way to the bottom, we're going to have it say proceed to the exit. Okay, I think that's everything. Let me just double check my notes. Oh, nope, one more thing. One more thing. And that is this logic gate here. Okay. So we're going to need a trigger area at the exit. And I was going to save that till next time because this pretty much drives everything that happens after you come out of the canyons. But we need it to do one thing here, so let me put this down. We're going to have this fill this area. Okay. And let's actually move that out away from that wall a little bit. So if the player walks up to the wall, they don't accidentally invoke the edge of that trigger area. Alright, so on the trigger area, a new logic connection when entered by player any, and they actually leave the canyons, then we want to come up and take the cannons out. So we're going to input into this gate, and on output from the gate, we will clear the replayer. And on the replayer, we'll do a new logic connection. When this is cleared, we'll turn around and close this gate because we only want to clear that replayer one time. Okay? And the reason we're using the trigger area and not keying off of this is because once the player, whether it's this one or it's this one that they've done, either way, they still need to get out of the cannons. So we want to leave the cannons in here while they make their way out. Once they leave, then it's safe to take those cannons out. So that's what we're doing there. And we'll do more with this trigger area next time when we hook up the battle out here and the I/O tower. But that'll be for next time. Okay, I believe that's everything. Let's go ahead and try this out. And at the same time, we can try out our path branch here. So we'll come out over here. And once again, before we test this, let me go ahead and save my game. and you're going to get a sneak peek here at what I'm working on. Because I have been working on a Wall-E toy box, and look at that. That is Wall-E's home. It's on an overpass, just like it is in the movie, and I'm using the Wakandan mining car as Wall-E's home. It looks really good. I put down a bunch of rubble from Building Sets Group 2 around it, stuck it on a path, and dropped it down into the ground, and it looks just like Wall-E's home. It looks really good. The only downside is you can't open the back door and go inside of it, but it looks really good. So those of you who actually watch my videos all the way through, you just got a sneak peek at something I'm working on. And it's going to take me a while to finish this toy box because I just started and I've got some ideas for it, but it's probably going to be a number of months before I'm ready to do anything with this, assuming all my ideas for it work. So don't be in too big a hurry to see that, but there you go. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll save the older one. And we'll overwrite that. That way, if something goes wrong with the logic, I can load that save file up and make some tweaks. But yeah, hope you appreciate the little preview there that I gave you, because I don't normally like to do that, but I know there's not a lot of people that watch all my logic videos all the way through, so if you're one of them, you just got yourself a little treat. Alright, so we'll generate our light cycle. Let's hop on. We'll enter the arena, and now I want to kind of watch and see what happens with that. There, he took the path. See that? He ran into that other light cycle, but then he's going to come back around, and we want to see if he reconnects to the original path. And he's doing some weird things. Let me jump off this and watch for a second. It's easier to see when I'm not watching the yeah, he's kind of stuck on the thing, and it's like, let me go into the spark mode here. It's almost like he's taking this path at a little bit different angle. See, he's branching off of there, and he's going over here. That is very interesting. He should have reconnected to the main path here. Yeah, he's just staying on the loop. That is very unusual because I have never seen that. Let's see, we do have this set up, right? Point reached by object on path. That should be connecting the triggering actor back to the main path. Huh. Well, I guess I better go take a look at this, and I will be back in just a moment. Okay, I am back, and I've figured out what's going on. What's going on here? I want you to watch the cycle as it comes around, and notice it doesn't pass through that point. So the logic connection that we made for when the point is reached by the object on the path, the object isn't ever reaching it. It swerves off of that path before it reaches that path point. See? And it goes over here to the start of the branch and then resumes its path around the branch. And I know it's not reaching this point and the logic's not kicking in because we can create a logic connection here when the point is reached by the object on the path. We can come over and play a sound effect if we want to verify that. So under the general category, we'll play our cash register sound. And we didn't hear the cash register sound. just in case we missed it. If he passes through that point, we should hear it. And we don't, because that logic connection's never kicked off, which means the logic connection to connect it back to the path doesn't work either. Now, I went ahead and thought, initially while I was playing with this offline, that we could come down here, for example, and add another path point and extend the path beyond there, like that. And I thought, okay, that might make the cycle connect, and it does, but now watch what happens. It reconnects, but it comes back over here. So the logic isn't quite working the way we want. And I believe the reason is because the driving physics are what's causing that. Because of the driving physics being on, it's not going to jump. It wants to remain continuous and do what a vehicle should do when driving physics are on, going the way they are. And so it's actually passing beyond this path. And so to try to reconnect it to the path, it's continuing on its way, and what it's doing is just connecting to this path and keep going. And this is actually better than what it was doing when I was testing this offline, because when it did that, it was coming over here and getting stuck and just going in circles. And so if you're going to use branches, what you need to do is turn off the driving physics, okay? And so what I'm going to do is we're going to exit out of this toy box without saving it. And I'm going to come back in and load up a fresh copy of the toy box. So let me do that, and I will be back in just a moment. Okay, I have loaded up a fresh copy of the toy box. And by the way, this is why we save our toy box before we test anything out. So before we activate the light cycle arena again, since I've reloaded the toy box and we're back in a fresh toy box, it doesn't remember my connection here to the sound effect generator over there, or that extra point that I dropped. So we're back to what it was when I saved it earlier. So we're going to come up here to the vehicle summoner for this path, and we're going to go into the options and turn off driving physics, okay? If you're going to use branches, that's what you're going to need to do. So if you put branches on every one of these paths, make sure you turn off driving physics on every vehicle summoner for the enemy vehicles. All right, and now we'll test it out, and it should work. So generate our light cycle. We'll head into the arena, and let's just watch what happens. Okay, so he's taking the branch. This is good. Sometimes you have to wait 3-4 loops before he'll actually take the branch. And let's just go ahead and get into spark mode so we can watch him a little bit easier here. Now watch what happens. Okay, so he connected to the path, and now he's back on the main path, and he took that main branch this time. And I don't know if you noticed, but there was a little bit of a hiccup there when he passed from this point and connected back to the main path. But let's just watch again for a moment. That was smooth because he's on the main path. And now he's on the branch. Let me get down here where we can kind of watch him close. All right, so when he comes through here, there should be a little bit of a hiccup. Yeah, just a very slight skip ahead on that when he went through there. But now you see the branching is working. He's taking the main path sometimes, he's taking the branch other times. So the key to using branching is to make sure the driving physics are off. Otherwise, the vehicle doesn't follow the path precisely, and that's where the problem comes in. But let's get back to our testing. There's one. There's another one. Okay, where's our next guy? He's gone. One more. All right. And the wall is down. Now the cannons should be in here. And I see little red dots on the radar. And so now as we drive around, we have some of those hiding around here that can surprise us. Of course, if you happen to know that they're here, you can sneak up on them. And then we'll come in here. This one I had set to orange. So we had a sound effect and we had the spinning star, which tells us that that one was set correctly. And then we'll back up out of there and we'll go looking for the second one. You can see the barrier's still there. Okay. Oops. There we go. And this one we had set to purple. And now we get the text, proceed to the exit. So now the barrier should be down. If we had gone a different way through these canyons, there might still be some of those turrets in here. So that's why we leave that. And then we drive through here. And now that would have cleared the replayer. And the canyons are behind us. And with that, the canyons are done. Next time I will implement the battle here when the player exits the canyons, as well as the logic for the I/O tower over there. Before you go, let me remind you that I have logic diagrams for today's episode on my blog. The link is in the video description. And be sure to like and subscribe for more Disney Infinity Toy Box builds like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.